Thank you everybody for joining us today. We're here with Muslim Delegates and Allies Coalition, along with the American Muslim Democratic Caucus and the Seminole County Democrats of Florida, Seminole County Democratic Party of Florida. And so one of the things that we wanted to do as a part of this election cycle is to do the phone banking, but we also wanted to use this time for this space to really organize and do a train the trainer type of program, so that not only are those of you who are on the call able to train your own communities about how to get out the vote, but also so that you know how to encourage and get more volunteers involved. And so we have a really exciting group of panelists today here for you to really help you in terms of how to mobilize voters. And so this program that we have as a part of the 50 state voter mobilization effort is really a part of a broader coordination that we have, where we're really concentrating all of our resources on Florida. And you'll hear from our speakers a little bit more about our strategy. Our first speaker that I have is Hania Jodat Barnes, and she was born and raised in Tehran to an Iranian family, and she migrated to the US when she was 11 years old. She is a businesswoman, philanthropist, and entrepreneur and published author. And she has worked as an award-winning face-to-face fundraising coordinator for the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, the UNHCR, USA and Australia, and is a successful fundraising coordinator for Oxfam America in Los Angeles. And is also as one of the founding organizing members of Women's March Los Angeles from 2017 to 2019, as well as a director of partnerships for WMLA. She has served on the planning committee for Families Belonging Together Los Angeles March for Our Lives, as well as International Women's Strike Along notable activists. And she has also coordinated efforts with the national team and the sister marches of Women's March Los Angeles, including the Day Without Women on March 8th, 2017, which is known as International Women's Day. She was a featured speaker at that event. In addition, she also helped with partnerships for the Women's March Los Angeles, Why I Marched. And so for her work and activism, she has been honored to be recognized by the City of Los Angeles, the Board of Los Angeles County Supervisor, and the City of West Hollywood. Hania also served as a Bernie Sanders congressional delegate, where she was an advocate for Medicare for All, and she also worked on a number of proposals for the DNC task forces, and her Medicare for All resolution was passed at a local level through the Democratic Party of Orange County, California. And so she has continued to set forward policy recommendations that protect underserved communities, and she works to lend her voice to the voiceless and elevate those who can't stand on her own. And she is also the co-founder of Muslim Delegates and Allies Coalition. Hania.
Sure. Thank you, Nadia. It's always an honor to be with you all. I think we've seen each other for the past 2-3 months, almost on a daily basis. Some of us have, and some of us work together closely. I know I have two of our colleagues here, also Shahan Khan and Ali Ben Zahid, who have been helping Nadia and I with the 50 state voter mobilization initiative, which is an initiative that was launched to bring more attention to swing states, especially Florida, to turn Florida blue. And you know, my next speaker that I'll introduce is Ali Ben Zahid, who is the political director of the 50 State Voter Mobilization Initiative, and truly a brother of mine whom I've had the honor, you know, to learn so much from. But I think one of the most important things for us to right now really focus on is making sure that Muslim voices and the communities of colors have a platform to stand on. And, you know, again, it is our duty to be able to make sure that we bring underserved communities together at the table and really show them the ropes, especially the ones who, say, for example, have language barriers, lack of transportation to these, you know, voting areas and voting places, providing opportunities for them to be able to understand what the voting process is, as well as helping by assisting them in any way, shape, or form, you know, that we can. The 50 State Voter Mobilization Initiative was launched by Nadia and I, along with Shahan and Ali, again, to not only be able to bring attention to Florida as a swing state, but also make this a down ballot effort and help with elections in terms of helping progressives even beyond, again, the November election, which is, you know, one of the most important ones in our history right now. So without focusing so much on that because again, we really want to hear from our panelists and the strategies that we have been using so far. I do want to introduce Ali, and we'll kind of go into the Q&A after. But Ali bin Zahid is a project management professional based in Chicago, Illinois. He ran for office in Canada and has extensive canvassing and data analytic experience. He was a part of Justin Trudeau's 2015 campaign for Prime Minister and helped elect a Liberal MP from Calgary for the first time in 50 years. Since then, he has been involved in several other campaigns, including Bernie Sanders' 2016 and 2020 presidential run. Now he's working to help elect Joe Biden as the next president of the United States. However, having said that, he's also just a pain to work with on a day-to-day basis. I just wanted to add that to just a side note for everybody. So I introduce you to Ali. Take it away, Ali. Tell us why we're focused on the 3 counties in Florida and what we're planning on doing about it.
Yeah, thanks, Ania, and thanks for the compliment. That I'm a pain. I love that. So if Nadia, if you can make me a host, I have a couple of slides that I want to quickly go over, and we'll talk about why we're doing what we're doing. All right, so I mean, the question here we're asking is why Florida? We know it's the largest swing state, 29 electoral votes, but I want to dive a little maybe deeper and take a look at how Florida has been in the past few elections. We all remember the 2000 election where it was 537 votes that decided the outcome of the election. But if you look at the last 3 elections, we know it's been very, very close, especially the 2016 election, just over 100,000 votes, 1 percentage point. So we know that Florida traditionally has been very, very close. But where do things stand right now? Let's take a look at that. You'll see polls come out daily, and what I would want to say is don't really focus on a lot of polls that you're seeing right now. There was a poll that came out last week that had Joe Biden ahead by 11 points, for example. Don't look at that. I mean, these might be some of the same mistakes that we made last time where we focused too much on the polls. The race is actually closer than you think. The last poll that came out of Florida yesterday actually has the race tied. And there was another poll this week that had Trump leading. That's the Trafalgar Group poll here. And what's interesting about that poll is that the way the Trafalgar Group does their polling is very different to how other pollsters do their polling. They not only look at what people respond when we do the poll, but they also look at whether or not people intend to vote the same way. So that's a sort of a judgment call that the pollsters make, and they adjust their results. So there's a case to be made that people like the Trafalgar Group might have a more accurate poll than the other pollsters. And this polling group got a couple of really good forecasts in the 2016 and 2018 midterm elections. So I think there's certainly some credibility there. So, I mean, point being that the race is very close. Let's not get carried away. It is, I think, neck and neck right now, and anything is possible in the last couple of weeks. Our focus right now is targeted outreach to 3 key counties. Now, obviously, we know that the main focus of the campaign has always been in the larger counties, which are traditionally blue. There's Miami-Dade, there's Hillsborough, Orange County, but where the focus might not be and where we think that our group can really make a difference is in these 3 counties. Currently, they're all red. 2 of these counties have been red for generations, but the margin of victory was very, very small. So we think that if we are able to energize the Muslim vote out there and make sure that they vote, we can flip these counties. And that's where our focus is. And what a great story that would be if we're able to overturn these counties and flip them. And I think on election night, when we see the results start to come in, if we see a pattern, if we see that some of these red counties are starting to turn blue, I think it will be an early indication to us that we've done really well in Florida. And that's it. Back to you, Hania.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ali.
Oh, I think, yeah, so sorry about that. Go ahead, Nadia, go ahead.
So thank you, Ali, for I think I want to say that Ali is really a real trooper. He really is a a key project management professional. He makes sure that we always make our phone calls and stay on task. So we do appreciate his work in that sense, even if we don't always enjoy it. And so,
and we say that with so much love and respect for you.
So next we have Rasha Mubarak, who is a Palestinian American Muslim community activist and consultant, and a political strategist and leader. And she was named 10 People Making Orlando a Better Place to Be in a 2019 Florida Young Democrat of the Year. She was born in Brooklyn, New York, and raised in the heart of Central Florida. Rasha is a grassroots organizer and political advocate for national, statewide, and local political candidates and campaigns around civil rights, human rights, interfaith work, immigration rights, and Black and Brown liberation. So we're really honored to have her join us here today. She's a real trooper. Like, she's a real soldier in terms of political activism and getting things done. So please, Rasha, we'd love to hear from you.
Good morning, y'all. I'm sure it's early for some folks, but I just want to say thank you, Nadia and Hania, for putting us on. What a world we are living in, subhanAllah. And I just pray that y'all are able to find joy. I know that these are heavy times. The racism is not new, the voter suppression is not new, but it does feel amplified in this moment. So I'm here, really, it's an honor to be in community with you all. I think, first and foremost, I think we all understand that the electoral process alone will not liberate us. That is just an element of this work. A lot of it is grassroots organizing, advocacy, the protests, the lawsuits, how we show up in the media room. So from the courtrooms to the media rooms to the streets, how we push policy, and of course the local, federal, and presidential elections. But I think a lot of us, when we do this work, it's important that we take it back to the drawing boards. And a question I ask folks a lot is, how do you want to feel the day after election day, right? Given our circumstances, our options, what is it, how do you want to feel? And I've found that now I've transitioned that question to, which battlefield do you want to be on? Because we understand that no matter who's elected, especially as Palestinians, as Muslims, as Arabs, South Asian, Iranians, Middle Eastern, Black, Brown people, we understand that no matter who enters the White House, that our fight continues and it doesn't end there. Right. But I think, yes, we are facing fascism, but I also encourage young people or people that feel disenchanted. A lot of times the Palestinian community is not even included in the bigger picture, is to focus on local elections, to focus on federal elections. Because right now, we're also seeing that we're crafting a new far left, not just on a national stage, but on a global stage. I mean, people that are talking about progressive issues now in Congress. We've elected the first 2 Muslim women, the first Palestinian woman into Congress, and we have a Black woman, Cori Bush, who's going to be joining them. We have Jamal Bowman, who are all people that stand for our issues. So I encourage y'all to support those people, whether you're in their state or not, but who we elected to Congress, who we elected to the Senate, even on a municipal level, how we push the policy that we want to see, because we have to be able to understand that it goes beyond the presidential elections. Read the amendments. There's so many resources out there in the state of Florida, but no matter how tired we all are, it is part of the responsibility. It is part of the equation to vote, right? So ensuring that you do vote. I know that our community is tired of voting for the cleaner, dirty shirt. It's exhausting. And the way that I've been able to translate it is to focus on the local, state, and federal elections and who's going to be making the decisions for us in Congress. So, I mean, there is a light. Look at Cori Bush. She went from Ferguson. She used to preach Ferguson to Palestine. People are unapologetic and they're willing to center our voices. So how we show up, voter protection, election protection on election day, voter suppression is going to be real. South Florida might be hit with a hurricane right before, long lines, sign up to be a poll worker or to volunteer. There's just so many ways to be a part of this process. It doesn't start and end with presidential. I think just reminding folks that our vote counts, and we're not going to let them leave us behind. And we're going to be a part of this process because our vote matters. And I just want to like ensure that no matter how tired we are, to remember that, and to our young people and Black and brown communities and the Muslim community, this is so important. And I just pray that y'all are safe and feeling fired up, because we understand that the electoral process alone won't liberate us, and it is through collective people power and how we show up day after election day. So Jazakallah khair and Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for having me, Nadia and Hania.
Thank you. See, everybody needs morning coffee. I need a dose of Rasha in the morning to kind of get me pumped up. So thank you for that, sister. Sister Fatmata Berry is scheduled to be our next speaker, but unfortunately she is not here just yet. So we will skip over to Ahmed Badir, whom will be introduced by Nadia. Ahmed, it's always a pleasure to have you. Anywhere and everywhere. So Nadia, take it away.
Okay, thank you. So Ahmed Badir is a social entrepreneur, human rights advocate, and development consultant, and radio show host and television commentator. He has worked to bring minorities and people of color to politics and democracy. For the past several decades, he's worked as a community organizer advocating for human rights. He also served as the president of the Human Rights Council of Tampa Bay and served on the state board of the ACLU of Florida. And he's the president of United Voices. Ahmed.
Good morning, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Pleasure to be here with you this Saturday. We're only a couple of weeks away from the election, and here in Florida, early voting starts Monday, and it goes for the next 2 weeks. As far as, I was asked to speak about the importance of the Muslim vote in this election. And as it was pointed out earlier by Ali, that in some of these battleground states, specifically Florida, the small Muslim community, which is small in numbers nationwide, but fortunately we're positioned in critical battleground states. We have large populations in those states, including Florida, where I am. And those states decide the election. While I appreciate the 50-state mobilization initiative that you guys have laid out and developed and wrote a lot about, it really comes down to a handful of states that are going to make the difference this election. And that's why we're focusing on this, today's program or today's discussion on all hands on deck on Florida, because whoever wins Florida will win the the presidential race. So it's critical that we get out the vote in Florida. Now, as it was mentioned before, not all Muslims are excited about the candidate. And some people are hesitant to get behind Joe Biden. He wasn't my favorite candidate, but then the way that we should be able to persuade people that are reluctant to get behind Joe Biden is that look at it as you're not for Joe necessarily, but you're against Trump, because most people will tell you that Trump is far more dangerous than Joe Biden. Some people will try to tell you that it's not, or that they're about the same, but in reality, there is a difference. At least with Joe Biden, you can create coalitions that can, push back or put pressure on them, and they'll respond to pressure. Regardless of whatever pressure was applied to Trump this past, over 3 years, hasn't been effective. He doesn't follow the rules. He doesn't follow the law. And it's hard to actually make the democracy or democratic process work. Now, of course, the US democracy is flawed. It's not perfect. It has its problems. And as we've seen in this current administration, there are a lot of loopholes, and people can get around the law, especially the establishment or people with power and money can act like they're above the law. But as Muslims in this country, as American Muslims, this is the only process that we have. If we want to make change happen, this is the process that's available for us. This is the vehicle. So some people will tell you, especially in the Muslim community, that we don't want to get involved in politics. They're all the same anyway. My vote doesn't make a difference. These type of excuses for not getting involved. Oh, I don't agree with the entire Democratic platform. You'll hear people especially conservative or religious Muslims, that would say things like, I like what the Democrats stand for, but I don't agree with them on social issues like abortion or same-sex marriage and other things. For that, we have to talk to them about the priorities. In order to actually bring about change. I mean, if one candidate is basically saying, I want to ban and kill more Muslims overseas by launching wars, and another candidate is saying, no, I want to welcome everybody and or not everybody, but I want to represent a more diverse America and respects, even if it's in word only, the religion of Islam, then it's not a difficult choice. So we can't get, I guess, fall to despair and say that nothing is going to work. We have to get involved in the political process. We have to vote. And this is not just about Joe Biden or Donald Trump. It's really about our own community. One of the main reasons politicians don't actually react to the Muslim needs is because not enough Muslims are voting, and they're not voting in a strategic way. If more and more politicians show or notice or realize that Muslims are making more of a difference in the election, then they'll be coming to our community to ask us what our needs are and to be able to serve them. When it comes to for example, the issue that many of us care about, like whether it's the occupation of Palestine or what's happening in Kashmir or India or so many other places, and we feel like, okay, the political powers are responding to the pro-Israel lobby, but they're not responding to the Muslims. Well, it's because the pro-Israel lobby is very organized. They vote in large numbers, and they don't stop on election day. So our work doesn't stop on election day. After we elect Joe Biden, even if we have to hold our nose when we're going to the voting booth and voting for him to just defeat Trump, we can't just say, okay, we've done our job. This is not how our democracy works here. We have to go back the next day. And especially after this election is certified, and if Joe Biden wins, we have to go back in the streets. We have to go back to these offices. We have to put basically Joe's back to the wall, metaphorically speaking, in case any of the secret services are tuning in. Metaphorically speaking, put pressure on Joe Biden and his administration to do the right thing. I mean, this is the kind of administration that as soon as they're elected, you're going to have to hold their feet to the fire the entire 4 years to be able to get them to one, commit to the promises that they promised, and two, to make sure they don't end up being like another Trump administration. Because in reality, that unless we do that, then the corporate elites, the 1%, the people that run things and control Congress and the government, because of their disproportionate influence with money, they'll have their way and we won't have our way. And this is the problem that we had with Obama, for example. I campaigned for Obama like some of you have, and I helped him get elected both terms or both times. And a lot of people were disappointed, including myself, in some of the initiatives that Obama did or didn't do. But it's not, a lot of people point the finger to President Obama, but they don't actually, which he does bear some of that responsibility, of course. But a lot of it also has to do with the supporters and those who voted for President Obama that didn't go back to him and start pressure. President Obama provided an opening, a door, an opportunity for us to be able to put that pressure, and at least he could respond to it. What our community did not do is use that time to put the right pressure to get the initiatives. Some other groups had better results. For example, the LGBTQ community. As soon as he got elected, even though he's an ally, they went to work and they were putting so much pressure on President Obama to push their initiatives through. And they accomplished many things that they've been asking for. It wasn't because President Obama is necessarily going to just automatically do what they wanted or follow, it's because they applied that pressure and they didn't stop, and they used their money and their votes to influence the political system in their way. If we don't like the drone strikes, if we don't like the wars overseas, the endless wars, if we don't like what's happening with the Palestinian-Israeli situation and occupation, well, we got to go back and put that pressure, because don't expect politicians to simply do the right thing because they have a conscience. they're also receiving pressure from other communities. So with that said, early voting starts Monday. I'm working here in Florida to get out the vote. We're engaging with candidates, and it's not just about the presidential race, it's also about the down ballots. And we have to send a message to the Democratic Party that not to take our votes for granted. You know, change is happening within the party. There's a progressive wing that get it, but however, the party is still in the hands of an establishment that's out of touch with the base. But that's changing. As soon as this election is over, you know what? This December, the Democratic Party is going to get restructured. It all comes down and they elect all new leaders, and it all starts at the precinct level. Those precinct captain levels, which oftentimes you can just get appointed because no one is running against you, are the ones that will end up being on the county executive committees. Those county executive committee men and women are the ones that decide who represents the party from each state. And then they eventually build up the national party and create the platform. We have to make a concerted effort after Election Day to get involved at the party level, at the grassroots, and be able to have our say in building the party for the next 4 years, 8 years, and so on. So with that said, good luck. I'm happy to be working with all of you on getting out the vote and to make sure that we vote in large numbers, because this is kind of a referendum on the Muslim community, a referendum that says, are the Muslim community serious enough to impact the political process? If we have a higher get out the vote number, regardless of who wins, we still win at the end, because we can take that to politicians at the state level. We can take that to politicians at the presidential level. We can take that to the political parties themselves and say, we showed that we had so many numbers, so many percentage of people to get out the vote, and we had them in these key battleground states. For example, in the I-4 corridor of Florida, which stretches from Tampa Bay all the way to Daytona and to the East Coast of Florida, that these are significant numbers. We can make it or break it for your campaign. So unless you provide, you agree to these platforms or these policies or issues, which by the way are not Muslim-centric issues only. These are issues that would be a benefit of all Americans. Then we're going to either help you or we're going to work against you. And that's how we have to look at things. But it all starts in having a large get out the vote. So thank you so much. I'm sorry for going over my allotted 3 minutes. But maybe you can take it away from Nadia's time or Hania's time.
Well,
no, I already cut mine short, so we're good.
We don't need to speak anymore, right?
No, thank you very much, Ahmed. I think you really gave some very visionary points about how we really have to go forward with this election. And so next I have Khila Kudus, who will be speaking, and I'm really excited to have her speak. She's really like another mother to me, and she's really somebody who I've known since I was really young, and really gives me like hope and what we can do as Muslim women. And she's actually born in my mother's hometown as well, of Hyderabad, India. She's a naturalized U.S. citizen who migrated to the U.S. in 1969. She is a wife and mother of 3 and a grandmother of 11. She was a board member of Welcoming Gainesville in Alachua County, an organization which is part of a national organization of Welcoming America, aiming to make America and Gainesville accepting towards immigrants, refugees, visitors, and harmonious, and make it harmonious in terms of welcoming the neighbors. Her lifelong passion with the community locally and globally has been to express love and support to people of all faiths and cultures and backgrounds through her humanitarian work. She has worked to establish the Khadija Foundation, and with her husband, they also purchased a church for it in Fort Pierce, Florida, and later turned it into a mosque. The foundation offered humanitarian needs and support with emphasis on education and scholarships for the very poor, working as a crutch for the ones in need globally. The foundation also offers a form of alms giving based on income zakat to the Muslim population. In 2000, the foundation's headquarters were moved over to Gainesville, where the organization continued its mission, raising awareness for not only the people locally, but also globally. And so for those of you who are not familiar, Alachua County is the big speck of blue in North Florida. Sister Khila, please.
Thank you very much, Nadia. I love you. Assalamu alaikum, and may blessings of God be with all of you. Yeah, our job is a little easier here because we are a blue dot in a Red Sea. It makes it nice, but we have to get the surrounding areas. My approach is a little different. As a mother and a grandmother, I always believe in love and understanding versus hate. And when I became a citizen, I always tell people, and I came out, I was so happy. Very young, my younger days, I came out so happy, and they were 2 tables there, and they said, register to vote. I'm like, yes, I'm going to register. So I went out to register, and they said, what do you want to be, a Republican or Democrat? I said, I just want to be an American. And they're like, no, you have to choose. I'm like, why can I not be just an American? But I realized the system. I was in college, I was taking history as one of my majors. So I do understand this is a democracy, which is very good, but we have to be American first, and we have to have a conscience. We have to have our own values and follow it and apply it to the system. We are not a monarchy. In monarchy, we inherit our leadership and we are stuck with that's children and children. We are a democracy. And the one thing I feel right now that I cannot allow is giving the leadership to a person who is derailing the family values and has very bad ethical values, has vulgarity in the language, abusive. And I involve my children, my grandchildren, my community. We sit together and watch things. I took all my grandchildren to the march in Washington, DC. So they're all part and parcel of this journey of ours. And I cannot have them exposed to such terrible things. And they look, this is a person who's leading the country, and for them to behave like that is unacceptable for me. So it's not a matter of being a Democrat or Republican. Also, we have to also choose somebody with proper, who has to represent us. And then we are a democracy. And it sort of balances out there. We have the Senate, we have the Congress. And like Russia was saying, we have to work with all our grassroots. We have to bring everything to the table. If we don't work hard in our communities to bring our values to the table, like we had the Black Lives Matter, that doesn't mean we are not saying all lives matter. Yes, all lives do matter, but right now we have to make our emphasis that we have to understand when we say Black Lives Matters, it's Black Lives Matters. We have intense problems here. We have to resolve it. When we talk about healthcare, we have to understand that everybody needs healthcare. We have one of the best healthcare systems in the world, and globally people come here, but if our own people don't get healthcare, how good are we? So these are all many, many issues. We have a lot of things. Politics are so involved and so tiring, and it is a lot of work. And like you said, it's just a lot of work. We have to be part and parcel of our space in this world. We were born not to just rest. We were born to work and constantly make sure, watch over, like a grandmother, a mother does, watching over children. We have to watch over our community, our society, make sure that they're all comfortable. They're all taken care of. We should not have all these homeless people. Everything. I'm by the grace of God, 68 years old. And my husband worked for 50 years in this country. We migrated here because we love this democracy here. And we always enjoy, this is our home and we love it here. But because of his hard work, he put into the social security system, he put into Medicare. He passed away 2.5 years ago. But by the grace of God, I live in great honor and respect because of my husband's hard work, putting into the social security, putting into the Medicare system. I go to the doctor, I don't have to worry because my husband paid. We have to safeguard all these things. These are very important things our previous presidents and lawmakers have established. We cannot be chiseling away at things, just like the climate change. It just makes me sad when I go outside and I look at the change, our environment is being abused so terribly. So these are all just it just crushes your heart. And this is what we need to also understand. We have to do global, everything has to be accurate, which will be an ongoing thing. Everything is lobbying in Washington. These people have power, but we cannot allow that. People are the power. Money cannot be the power. And we are the people. We elect our people. We have to be informed. We have to make sure we look at our candidates, we vote for them, and then we follow up on that. We have to make sure, we have to understand that White House is ours. we rent it out on a 4-year lease. And sometimes we have evict people when they're not behaving themselves in there. So after 4 years, it is for us to see who we want in our house. That is our house. Nobody gets that house. It's only by us, the people, who put our person there, and they represent our country. Our beautiful country has to be represented just right. This is a very important issue, and people have to, everyone has to go out and mark their vote. Mark their vote and make sure that whoever you're voting for is the one that is going to be representing us, you, me. I want somebody to go to the door and answer the door that is not me? So this is what it is. We are people, and we are Americans, and we are all America. We have people, I cannot even emphasize, when I came to this country in 1969, what a beautiful and welcoming country it was. Let us keep it like that. Let us bring it back to that. Let people all understand it. Let's take care of every nationality, and let's take care of our African-American brothers and sisters, our Native Indians, everybody who's here. Everybody should be taken care of, and no one should be left out. So this is a plea of a mother, a grandmother. As I leave this world, I want to leave a better world for my children, my grandchildren, not just through Americans, but through globally. And America is a leading country. People have loved it and respected forever. I travel globally. Wherever I go, when they see my passport, they're like, oh, from America. Even in hostile lands, they look up at you with love and respect. Let's get back. Now they mark us like, oh, you have, so and so. It's very sad. It is a sad thing. So let us get back to our country, what our country belongs. Let us understand the values and of what our country was based on. I hung my heart here, and my children, we are third generation Americans here. And I want my children, grandchildren, and everybody, every American that's here to be very happy and blessed and pray for America. Thank you. My love and prayers are with all of you and with my country. I hope it will be the country I came to, and I hope it will be a better country. And like it says, in God we trust, with liberty and justice for all, and amen to all of that. Thank you so much for giving me my time to speak, Nadia. Love you, sweetheart. I'm so proud of all of you, all the wonderful work you all are doing. It makes me so happy. Thank you. God bless you.
Well, thank you for sharing your experiences with us. And your loving words. It is my absolute honor also to recognize Brother Sayed Hassan here, who is the chair of, or the co-chair of the American Muslim Democratic Caucus, an organization that Nadia and I have had the honor of working with in the past few months as delegates and advocates. They stand for the right thing all the time. And Ahmed Badir also serves on the committee of AMDC. So we're very honored to have you as speakers and participants and sponsors of this event. But it is also a great honor for me to introduce our next guest, Fatmata Berry, who came to Maryland by way of Florida and Sierra Leone, West Africa. She came to the US at the age of 11. So we have that in common, Fatmata. She's a former chair of the current executive member of the African Affairs Advisory Group for Montgomery County. As co-chair of the Cultural Working Group in AAAG, she's a member of the Pan-African Film Festival Planning Committee, which produces PANAF Fest every September to celebrate Montgomery County's African Heritage Month. As an attorney, she has successfully litigated many special education cases presenting students with special needs against the DC public school system to ensure that students receive their legally mandated free and appropriate public education. This includes provision needed educational and related services. During the 2018 primary elections, Fatmata ran for one of the 3 districts, 20 state delegate seats. Although she did not win a seat, she made a great impact and brought awareness to communities and that otherwise would not have been recognized. She is the first African woman to run for the seat and earned almost 9% of the vote with over 4,000 votes. Very proud of you, Fatmata. She is the area coordinator with the Montgomery County Democratic Party and chair of the MD Democratic Party Continental African Diversity Leadership Council. It is my honor to have you speak to us, to our audience, Fatmata, and take it away, please.
Oh, thank you so much for all that. It's so great to be here. And it's an honor. It's one of the things I really love about this. And Nadia, I'm so glad for the invite, and not just to speak, but to be involved. I'm also part of, with Nadia, the Muslim Women for Biden group. And historically, growing up in this country, when you say Muslim, I'm not exactly the image that people think of when they see, or, you know, and people tend to ask, are you a convert? And no, I'm not a convert. I was born and raised a Muslim, come from a Muslim family, raised as a Muslim. In Sierra Leone, we were able to live, my mother's Christian, my father is Muslim. So I grew up in that sort of an environment where you learn to work and live and grow, not just in one community, but in several communities. And I'm honored to be here to speak with you. So and I was listening to Ahmed speak, and it's so resonated with me, because those are part of the things that I've tried to push here. The fact that we can work like we are right now, but the work does not end when the campaign is over. The work is just starting when the campaign is over. The creating a voting bloc has been what I've been fighting for, because the reality in this country is that the loudest voice is the one that's heard, and the group or the people who make the greatest impact are those that make sure the politicians and elected officials are aware that without me, you will not exist. And if you don't make me happy, you may not be around the next time. And I think that's sort of what the role we have to take, not to the extent of where we harm ourselves, but to the extent to where at the end of the day, when they take a step back and they look at what we as Muslims are doing or have done, they realize not just that we have the power and the strength, but the diversity within the Muslim community is real, and our issues are real. And to make sure that when they are putting policies in place, we're at the table. So one of the greatest examples, I think, is it's not just working in these groups that we have, but when this is over, or while this is happening, to make sure that when they are putting policies in place, there are people who represent our interest at the table to put those policies in place. Because otherwise, all this is for nothing. It really is. And that, I think, is one of the most crucial parts of the work we're doing right now. And when we talk about Muslim policies and Muslim issues, we also have to be cognizant as a group, like I said earlier, the diversity of the Muslim community. Because what may impact me as an African Black Muslim woman may not necessarily impact the Arab Muslim, right? And it's making sure when we're putting our issues and our policies together, we speak to each other and we come up with policies and we come up with things to put forth that comprises of all of us. And then at the end of the day, we have a more cohesive voice and a stronger voice when we push for issues. And one of the things that I've seen and I really, really, really love is the Muslim community coming out and speaking on Black Lives Matter. And I think that really makes an impact, and it really makes a difference, because there has been so much time spent on sort of disenfranchising certain groups and making them feel like you don't have the same issues, and there's no correlation between you two. But seeing the voices and seeing the people standing up because they actually see real life disenfranchisement and policies that harm not just the Black community, but at the end of the day, we know what the effects were for Muslims, especially after 9/11. I remember my father would go to the airport and he would have on his entire outfit from head to toe. And my mother would be scared and worried because this is, you are like beaming, I'm a Muslim man. And right now things are not the best for us. And knowing that and still wanting to be that person who is not afraid to show that he's a Muslim, that really impacted me as his daughter and showed me that we as a community can make ourselves heard, can make our issues known without being afraid to state them, without being afraid to say, I'm a Muslim woman who wants this to happen because I'm a Muslim woman. And I think sometimes we sort of don't want to say this is a Muslim issue because you don't want to say it's a Muslim issue and it's identity politics. But that's what everyone does. Every person, every group who advocates for themselves, it's because of the identity. And I think we have to push that envelope, and we have to be very, very vocal. We don't need to hide. We don't need to take our issues and make them fit into other groups to make it easier to swallow. And I think we're on the right track, and I'm so happy that this group is in existence, and I'm so happy that other Muslim groups, like the Muslim Women for Biden group, is in existence. And my hope is at the end of all this, we can all come together to really push strong agendas that helps not just us as a Muslim community, but that will trickle down to our children as time goes on and build our political power, because that's the only way, it's the only way we can make it in this country, is to build up our political power. And once you do that, you can help your countries from where you come from, because that's just the reality. Those who have built up the political power in this country are able to help their original nations because of what they have done here and how much strength they have built for themselves. And I can see us doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Fatmata. A part of the reason why Muslim Delegates and Allies as a coalition formed was because this year delegates were over 100. We had over 100 Muslim delegates to the DNC. And our goal, when Nadia and I first spoke, we made it a mission to make sure that that number is above 400, hopefully, and even more, because it is, Muslim power is extremely critical to building this country, obviously, and we want to make sure that we provide the tools for every single Muslim who's interested in becoming involved and engaged in politics, especially our women, Muslim women, to have the tools needed to be able to do just that. So I thank you, Sister Fatmata, for touching up on such critical points, with your speech. I had the honor of introducing Mori Salahan one time before, and it is again an honor to do that here on this call. So I feel like I've known you for a long time, even though this is really our second time on a Zoom meeting together. So Brother El Hajj Mori Salahan is a Metro Washington, D.C. based human rights advocate, author, lecturer, and poet. His work has taken him across America, into Africa, Europe, Indian subcontinent, and the Middle East. He is a founder of the Coalition Against Political Imprisonment and the National Association for Police Accountability. He also founded and formerly served as a director of operations for the Peace Through Justice Foundation. He presently serves as director of operations for IFA Foundation, Inc. It is an honor to have you here. Please take it away.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Let me begin by stating I salute my sisters. Alhamdulillah for bringing us all together on this Saturday morning. I'm actually coming to you from Boston, where I am here as a guest of Masjid Alhamdulillah for some work I had to do yesterday and what we were expecting to do today before the weather intervened. But I'm glad to be with you this morning. I want to just focus for my few minutes on emphasizing the point, especially for those responsible for a lot of the noise out there right now and the distractions, why we must vote. There's the well-known prophetic hadith. When you see an evil action, you must change it with your hand. You cannot do so with your tongue. The jihad of the tongue. If you cannot do so, detest it within your heart, and that is the weakest degree of faith. The vote is an instrument, or I should say, you know, it's an instrument of speech. It is part of and parcel of the weaponry we have in the area of the spoken word, and you know, that step above and beyond just detesting something with your heart. Points that I think are important for us to emphasize in these final days. Again, trying to maneuver past all of the distractions, especially for the members of my tribe, the African American community, and as well as Muslims. Distractions like Kanye West and Ice Cube and subhanAllah, the mindless debates over, you know, both parties or this, that, and the other. And so we should abstain from them all. We are living in very challenging times right now that require us to do things that we may not in the past have thought that we would call upon ourselves to do. It's like what I said, Sister Nadia, when she invited me to be a part of this this morning's dialogue. You know, I never, up until this year, I never would have thought that activists that are considered to be mainstream activists would have invited me to a forum like this. And nor would I have been interested in participating in a forum like this, but these are unprecedented times that require unprecedented responses. You're getting back to what I consider to be some of the major points of things that we should be emphasizing in these final days. Number one, the respect for science, for the science related to this deadly global pandemic for which America has become its epicenter. That's number one. Secondly, respect and a proactive response to growing societal demands for reform and accountability in the way that policing is done in the United States of America, as well as reforms in other areas of America's criminal justice system. Point number three, immigration reforms and the restoration of the U.S. As a nation that respects well-established refugee law. You know, this should result in the immediate release of thousands of illegally imprisoned refugees, children as well as adults. Number four, ending the threat to the Affordable Care Act, AKA Obamacare, and the prospect of millions of people losing health care protections. I mean, there are so many millions of people, the overwhelming number of people in this country that are without protection still. But the millions who were able to access it through Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, losing what they've been able to achieve. Point number 5, U.S. reaffirmation for environmental laws that acknowledge and respect the science on climate change. And lastly, an equal focus on all levels of government is very important, as you know, a couple of the previous speakers have noted. An equal focus on all levels of government, local, state, and federal, in the upcoming elections is very, very important. On a final note, while this is an organizing event that I fully endorse, and again, my compliments to the organizers, I, like Brother Ahmed and others, cannot stress enough how important it will be to continue organizing to maintain pressure for positive change after the November elections. Extremely important. We are at a precedent-setting and very fortuitous moment in America's history, in my humble opinion. With the effects of the pandemic and justice-related uprisings from coast to coast, we must take advantage of this moment. We must take advantage of it. And I would say one last thing on the issue of Obama, because I too was a critic of Obama. In fact, I was so disappointed with the Obama administration that I didn't vote for President Obama's reelection. I didn't vote for him. I voted for a dead man. It was a protest vote. I knew that my state would, in Maryland, right outside Washington, D.C., would go his way. And so I registered a protest vote. That's how disappointed I was. But we have to share that disappointment because we did not do what we were supposed to do. And one of the things that, by way of example, I'm going to quickly give you two. One is what Obama himself said after he was elected. You know, I don't remember if it was just before he was elected or after he was elected. He said, he referenced a speech that, well, it wasn't a speech, it was a conversation that Roosevelt had with someone who had come to the Oval Office to personally campaign for something that was needed. He said at the end of that discussion, he said, "I agree with you, now make me do it." And Obama referenced that in one of his speeches, "Make me do it." This is what Roosevelt said, and he was by extension saying the same thing. We did not do what we were supposed to do in terms of exerting pressure on the Obama administration to do what it was supposed to do. And another very quick example is, you know, he campaigned, if you remember, on closing Guantanamo. And the very first executive order that he signed off on was the closure of Guantanamo. And what happened? His executive order ended up being crushed by a House and Senate that was at that time, and during that first administration, it was in Democratic control. They vetoed his executive order, which reminds us that this is a systemic issue. This is a systemic monster that we're having to contend with. And so again, it's very important. It is very, very important that after these elections in November, in which I pray that, you know, this incumbent, who is the worst of the worst of the worst of my lifetime, is removed, that the pressure is sustained. And with that, I will stop and thank you for the unprecedented invitation to, extended to your brother Salah Khan.
Thank you, brother. Now, when again, there's always a story behind why things happen the way they are. And so with the 50-state voter mobilization, again, our focus was to turn out the vote for swing states and obviously provide education to people who really need it, right? And so we met Shahan. Shohan Khan, who is currently a young activist, a progressive activist, who is now working with the Biden campaign in order to turn out the Muslim vote. I'll introduce him. He's another brother from another mother, and he is, again, just like Ali, he's been a critical element to making sure that calls are made, volunteers are recruited, and we just get the vote out. And yesterday he got tough on me because I haven't volunteered enough time to make phone calls, and I never thought I could keep my composure by not reaching through the screen and just strangling him, but I did. So, you know, that was just God's power, you know, speaking through me. But Shahan, you are amazing. I'm going to let you talk about the importance of volunteering to make calls and obviously provide the training that's needed. But I do want to introduce you. Shahan Khan is a Joe Biden field organizer and a UCF student working to empower the up-and-coming leaders of the Muslim community. With experience in grassroots organizing and constituent service, he's currently focused on organizing American Muslims in a unified voting bloc. I've learned so much from this young man that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. And this is, again, Shahan, this is really true. And I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Take it away. Tell us why it's so important, you know, for us to start to volunteer, phone bank, and give us a quick training.
Yeah, thank you, Sister Hania, for that incredibly flattering introduction. Sister Nadia and everyone part of the 50 state mobilization who's, you know, worked so hard to put this together. And I will just say, you know, when I first got kind of involved with the 50 state mobilization, I kind of had to also be a little firm and, you know, make sure that while we're doing these 50 state mobilizations, we're working strategically, and that we're targeting our efforts and we're making sure that we're turning people out where we'll have the most effect and where we'll have the most influence. And Ali has been incredibly vital in getting those numbers and doing that analysis. And, you know, we wouldn't be here without, you know, the work that has already been put in. You know, I'm really just the guy cutting the list. But, you know, before I got into the Joe Biden campaign, like, you know, Brother Ahmed said, and, you know, like a lot of us felt, I was hesitant about hopping onto the campaign. I didn't want to throw my support or my efforts towards someone who didn't fully embody my own interests, but not only that, my community's interests. And in that, it also turned me to the point where we need to make sure that we can organize in a space and that we have a space that is safe to gather our interests together. And that doesn't happen with the re-election of our incumbent. So that's why, you know, I got into the campaign. That's why I want to work here and work to get our community out, because, you know, we don't want to be in this position again. My first election was 2016. I grew up in a post 9/11 era in one of the most conservative towns in South Florida, in Davie, Florida. So I've seen it firsthand. I've had classmates who are Klan members. I've been through it, and I don't want to go back. And that's really why we're focusing so hard on places like the I-4 corridor, Pinellas, Duval, Seminole, and these counties, to make sure that, you know, we can look past the divisions in our community and look towards our common interests, which is closing Guantanamo Bay, undoing, you know, the imperialist views of American foreign policy, and having our own networks to get those interests out. So with that, what we've been doing is we've been cutting targeted lists of Muslims in Florida. It's as expansive as we can get it with the data we've been given, but ultimately the goal is to mobilize at least 15,000 Muslims across these three counties and swing these votes. Florida being the biggest battleground state with 29 electoral votes, and having a Muslim community that's so strategically placed in not only our strongholds, but in areas that we can win in. You know, we want to make sure that we get that vote out and begin our actual work after November. You I just want to reiterate that our work does not stop November 4th. My work does not stop November. We're pushing past it. We're going to hold our leaders accountable, and we're going to make sure that, if they don't listen to us, if they don't hear us, they're going to feel us at the ballot box, in the community, and in this, and they'll hear us. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I just want to, take a quick look at the script that we're using right now to get people out to vote and mobilize them, and also, to go through the actual process of using our virtual phone bank. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Excuse me one second. So exactly that. What are we saying? So when we make these calls, these targeted calls towards Muslims, we are using the script that the Joe Biden campaign has given us. But first and foremost, we want to make sure that we're checking in on people during this pandemic, during this economic crisis, during this election. I know a good portion of the people I talk to have either been furloughed, or they've dealt with Florida's broken unemployment system, and they've been struggling. So we want to make sure that not only do they have someone to listen to, but if we can direct them towards any resources that we know or that we're connected with, we can do that. So once we do that, we want to be strategic in who we're speaking to. So that first question is always going to be, will you be supporting Joe Biden in November? We want to utilize our efforts in a way that they're effective. So we want to make sure that we're speaking to people who will, support Joe Biden. If they are, we'll move on to that second question about down ballot change. If they're leaning, or if they're strongly, going to be supporting Trump, we're good on that. You can go ahead and end that call. I don't want to turn out any Trump votes. I don't think anyone else does. And if they're undecided, these are also the people we want to bring in. These are the people we want to engage and have the same conversation that we're having here. To talk about why it's important, not just to, get Joe Biden in office, but why it's important to get Donald Trump out, why it's important to work on our down ballot initiatives, and why it's important to network as a community. So we can properly advocate for ourselves, and so we can, actually work and vote and live as a community in this country and be accepted. And that'll move us on to that second question. Will you be committing to supporting Democrats up and down the ballot? All of our issues with the party aside, if there is any party that's viable, that is advocating for us, at the very least, it's the Democratic Party. So we want to, make sure that we're supporting people who don't want to immediately harm us. And we know that the GOP is never going to be looking out for our self-interest. So if they're strong or leaning towards Biden, we'll continue with that conversation. If they're not, you can go ahead and end that call. And we won't be asking people to register for vote by mail, but we will be pushing to get those mail-in ballots into the ballot box as soon as possible. Early voting, as Brother Ahmed mentioned earlier, starts on Monday. So we want to make sure that we are getting ballots in as soon as possible. We're already seeing record turnout, but we want to make sure that we keep our foot on the gas and we don't repeat the same mistakes we made in 2016. So getting those mail-in ballots in as soon as possible, getting people to the polls, and getting them in at a time where they won't have to go to their own precinct. One of the good things about early voting is that you can go to any precinct in your county. And we're already seeing with the long lines and the way Florida's elections are typically run, we can imagine those lines will be here as well. So while people can get their votes in quickly and effectively, we want to make sure that we're pushing the vote out as much as possible. And then we'll be asking a simple question of, can we count on 3 of your friends to also vote for Joe Biden? Vote tripling is a simple theory that when we ask people to help out and remind those 3 people, when it comes time to actually cast their ballot, they'll take them with them. So once we ask them if we can count on them to remind 3 of their friends to vote, if they say yes, that's your opportunity to connect with them and let them know, I'm going to be reminding my mom, my brother, and 2 of my cousins, and we're all going to go together and vote early in person. And you can go ahead and, log the people that they mentioned in that notes section at the bottom. And if they say no, they don't want to name the people that they're going to be calling or reminding, that's fine. Just let them know that if they think of them or if they meet them, let them know to go out and vote. We want to make sure that we're turning out as many Joe Biden votes as possible and flipping this huge battleground state that we're in. And finally, it's important to actually get out and do the work. It's not Joe Biden making these phone calls. It's not Joe Biden knocking on doors. It's very much his field staff, volunteers, and people on the ground. So we want people to join in these next 17 days to get the vote out, to make sure that people understand what's at stake in November, and to make sure that they know we have plans and mobilization plans for after November, so we can hold this administration accountable. So we'll be using firm language like, can we count on you to volunteer with us here in East Orlando or Broward County or wherever it is in Florida? And depending on what their answer is, as organizers, we'll be able to follow up with them and get them involved and make sure that they have all the proper resources to get the vote out. It's incredibly important in these times to make sure that we get this community work in, and in conjunction with that grassroots work, we work electorally. So we can work on that battle at 2 fronts, and that'll take us into the nature of phone banking. Phone banking is one of the most effective ways to reach people in a pandemic. But with that, your contact rate is typically 10 to 15%. That's just because people don't pick up random numbers, which I understand. So when you get on this virtual phone bank, you'll see the name, their phone number, what county they're in, their email, and their phone number again, or in case they have a secondary number. Just under that, you'll see a button that says, I couldn't reach that person. And once you click on it, you'll get this drop-down menu of options to mark. So with that, if you call someone and it goes to voicemail, or if they're busy or if they can't speak at that moment, you can just go ahead and mark them not home. If they are, upset, or if they're Trump supporters, or if they're people who just don't want to be called, and they tell you not to call them again, you can go ahead and mark that refused. For options like deceased, definitely offer your condolences, offer your thoughts, and give them their peace. If they moved out of the state, even though they can't vote in Florida, they can make calls into Florida. So we want to make sure that even if it's not, even if their vote won't be counted here, their efforts can be used to mobilize voters in a large swing state. And we also have dedicated phone banks for Spanish language voters, and also people who might speak Haitian Creole or any of the other languages spoken here in Florida. So you can mark them either Spanish or other language, so we can reach out to them in a tongue that they are comfortable with. And we won't be using options like call back, busy, or left message, simply because we'll just be marking not home. And if it's a wrong number or disconnected, you can just go ahead and mark it so. That's going to be just a way to clean out that data. So when we go back to these phone calls, we know that we're calling targeted folks. And with that, that's going to take us in actually getting into the virtual phone bank. So for anyone who's going to be making calls, you can go ahead and go to openvpb.com and go ahead and create that Action ID account so we can start making calls. So I'll go ahead and put that in the chat as well.